Hey, what's up? It's Brian here. And in this video, I'm going to go into the dynamics of teamwork and what politicians in America in general can learn from sports. So if you appreciate the messages, comment down below a point that stood out to you, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And first, I just want to frame what I'm seeing in America and politics in general right now. So I'm seeing a lot of tension, division, arguments. And though some of it is in reality, I do acknowledge that some of it is overblown because mainstream media, a lot of the times, they only highlight the tension and perhaps not the peace out there. Social media, they do the same thing in general. They highlight the extreme polarizing viewpoints out there. So it's not like people are kind of arguing daily in the streets, but nevertheless, there is tension out there and a lot of it is unspoken and it seems like it's getting worse. And in terms of politics, so I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans here. They all seem just full of it pretty much to me, and I'm not political, so I'm not going to go into games of calling out one particular side or even one particular person. And the reason I'm not going to do that too is because a major point of this video is that politicians do that too often. So they demonize the other side. They have an us versus them mentality on certain things, and they encourage that too. People in politics, just in America out there, they have an I am right mentality on practically every single issue. Or, politicians, I've heard them say things like pick a side perhaps on extremely complex issues as if there's only two sides of the issue, right? A lot of issues like healthcare, things related to taxes, education, poverty, race stuff, there's several different solutions, several different angles of looking at issues, and when you just try to put it in a box, that's really unproductive. So a lot of stuff I'm seeing from America, from politicians out there, it's just not helpful at all if we're trying to coexist as human beings and just make America and the world as great as we possibly can. And look, I'm going to go into sports right now. So one example in sports, so say a basketball game, right? Two opposing teams are playing. And during the game, right, they're really competitive. They play within the rules, but then when the game is over, they shake hands. They don't try to go outside the rules. So right now in politics, I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing respect for one another during a game. I'm not even seeing people play by rules. People too often in politics, they make up rules as they go, it seems. They don't shake hands with the other person at the end of the day. They don't. So in some ways, sports teams show more respect and civility than a lot of people in America right now, whether you're talking about across the political aisle or just across the aisle on different issues. And of course, you can kind of notice that like team to team in sports. But the wild thing is that I don't even think that that's the most accurate analogy in this case, because the most accurate analogy and example is that everyone in reality in America, politicians in Congress, they should be on the same team. They're not even on different teams in the same game. They're actually on the same team. So that's what's so frustrating, right? Everyone in the government, for example, should be working hard for America. That should be the common goal. And too often it's not because politicians lack teamwork. And also in America, of course, we're all Americans, but most importantly, we're all fellow humans. So that's what I take to heart. I believe in teamwork to our fellow humans. We all should have the common goal, I believe, to be the best people we can possibly be and then help the world too. So that's why I'm willing to work with, to communicate with anybody as long as your heart is sincere and you're not evil to the core. And I would say at least 98% of people out there are not evil to the core. And this is not how some people think in America right now. People think if you have a different idea than them on a particular topic, then you're the enemy. That is so unproductive. That's just being a bad teammate. And going back to sports and basketball. So there's different routes sometimes to get to the same goal. So teammates may have different styles, say, of scoring a basket. So people, they don't really embody that realization right now in America. A lot of people have that my way or the highway mentality. So say if one side has, say, XYZ solution to improve the education system, they might instinctually think another person who has a different idea to improve the education system is wrong. Not acknowledging that they could be right too. There could be several ways to get to the same goal. So that's just being closed-minded and a bad teammate. And look, even in sports, say, if sometimes a teammate may be lazy, right, or have a misguided idea on something, so the best way to approach them is to go to them man to man, woman to woman in a respectful way, right? But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing politicians out there meet another politician where they are at, be understanding to them, and then try to find some common ground, try to find a resolution. I'm not really seeing that. We've really gotten away from that. So when people might hear a rude comment out there or an insensitive comment, or maybe propose a solution that doesn't really help. You gotta be understanding to that person, and I'm not seeing that at all. I'm not seeing that. And then that person who maybe says that misguided idea, they have to be open to constructive feedback too, which I'm not seeing also in politics and in America. And it pretty much boils down to this too. You cannot just live in a bubble, right? You gotta see other perspectives as you're simultaneously pushing someone on your team to get better in sports, right? So same thing in politics. And these are things too I learned when I was 12. And that's why it's so frustrating seeing these grown men and grown women in Congress and politics just act like children who don't understand what teamwork is. It's just mind-boggling to me, right? Another example in sports. So say you don't see eye to eye with a teammate on something, right? As a teammate, you don't want to make your other teammate look bad, right? If you're on the same team as them, you don't want to shame them. You don't want to judge them. You don't want to go to the media and talk behind their back and make a big story, right? You don't want to make them look bad because that serves you no purpose because you're on the same team. So like imagine a scenario, right? LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Imagine if LeBron had a criticism of Anthony Davis and then went to the media about it and complained about it. Guess what? Sports Center, all the news outlet will be calling out LeBron for going to the media and saying that. Yet politicians be tweeting about their government teammate, be criticizing them, and nobody bats an eye. It's ridiculous and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. Look, when I was younger, I figured out just watching and playing sports that compromise is a major component of team success. So if the overarching goal is to make the team better, you really have no choice but to compromise. So an example is in sports. I guarantee you, look at the NBA champions the last 20 years. Say the fourth leading scorer on that team probably averaged 13, 14, 15 points a game. I guarantee you put that scorer on a team with a losing record, they would have probably averaged 20 points a game that year, but they sacrificed for the greater good of the team. Or maybe a backup player averaged 15 minutes per game on a team. You put that player on an average team, they played 30 minutes a game. So this compromise factor to make the team better, it's lost right now in politics and just in the dialogue amongst a lot of Americans right now. It really is. In politics and just in conversations that people have, I'm seeing a lot of me. I want to be heard. I want to be heard. I want to be heard. My side, my side, my side. And not much listening is going on. And a lot of people, they view compromise as the weak thing to do, which is so backwards because actually the weak thing to do is the refusal of compromising. That's the childish thing to do. And another sports example. So say there's a lottery team in the NBA. Maybe they have 20 wins out of an 82 game season. So they might have some players on the team that are popular, that put up some stats that look good to maybe 16-year-olds who don't know the dynamics of the game. But guess what? To everyone else out there who knows what a great team looks like, that lottery team, that player who's trying to put up stats for themselves but not for the betterment of the team, they're going to look poorly, right? So that's what I'm seeing in politics a lot right now in the United States. Like just reading news articles, hearing politicians speak, I think to the outside world, they all look like children, just going for themselves and not really sitting down as grown men and women at a table and coming up with solutions to make America and just people better in this country. I'm not really seeing a lot of grown men and grown women talk out there. And I guarantee you, a lot of these politicians out there, when they played sports when they were younger, they were probably the worst teammate you could possibly imagine. Seriously. And again, like I said earlier, I don't want to call out anyone in particular or any side. I could, but I won't, because I think that would just create more division and that would stray from the point I'm making. And also, it's kind of like a coach too. Like sometimes a coach, maybe when they're directing the whole team, they don't have to call out that person that made that lazy play on defense by name. Just by calling out, hey, we need to improve our defense, that person will get the point. So sometimes you can deliver your message without even directly naming someone, because people who are listening, they know what you're talking about. So the next thing that America and politicians can learn from sports is to not be a hypocrite. So in sports, a player can't be all about grinding, being like, that teammate's got to work harder, all that stuff, if they're the ones partying on Friday night instead of hitting the gym. Right, you gotta be going hard in practice if you're getting on your teammate for not doing so. And in politics, I'm seeing a lot of politicians just embody this statement, do as I say, not as I do. And if someone embodies that, they lose all credibility with me. They should not be politicians. And side note, they shouldn't be parents either, because that's kind of the hallmark of parenting. So it's really discouraging, honestly, that so many politicians are hypocrites, and then their parents too. That kind of just compounds the negative result from that. And also just America in general, a lot of people embody this too. So quick example, people might say Black Lives Matter, but then they have never helped or cared for a black person in their entire life. Or maybe they're directly harming the black community by maybe bullying a classmate in school or shooting up a blocker or something like that. Or maybe someone says all lives matter, but then deep down they really don't care about a particular race, and they view that race as inferior when maybe something happens to someone in that race because they maybe quote unquote had it coming or something like that. So there's hypocrites amongst all groups of people, and you really have to acknowledge that, right? And if you understand anything about the dynamics of sports, you understand that the number one thing you want to avoid is being a hypocrite to your team, right? You got to do what you say. You got to say what you do. That's so important. And this ties into a little quote I remember from one of my all-time favorite athletes, Ray Lewis. He said one time, "I'm not willing to tell you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself." And Ray Lewis in football, he laid himself out there on the line every single night. So his talk was valid because that he was one of the most credible athletes of all time because he backed it up on the field. And a lot of politicians, they're not backing up anything on the field. And to wrap this video up, so I just hope we can all work together, right? Because like a lot of stuff I talk about is kind of depressing, like ugh. And look, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of stuff I'm seeing out there is extremely negative, and I don't really think we're at a breaking point yet, partly because mainstream media and social media, they really benefit from highlighting polarizing viewpoints, especially when ratings are down in the news. They're always trying to rile people up, and a lot of times everyday people that are kind of brainwashed, they just eat it up and they adopt a lot of the negative mentalities and closed-minded views that are on the news, and then develop the us versus them mentality. And so many people too in America, they excuse their hate of a particular group by saying that group hated them first, or they excuse their violence because the other side did it first, or they say, oh, I'm just disrespectful because the other side did it first. So all that stuff's negative, but look, I think it's going to be a lot of work, but I hope we can turn it around in America. But first we have to acknowledge all these issues going on internally and how so many people in America and politicians are just lacking basic teamwork skills, right? So I really encourage, especially politicians out there, to just stop acting like 4-year-olds. In sports, like I said, you can't just blame your lazy defense on the fact that your teammate was lazy. You got to take personal responsibility for yourself. I don't care who did what first. You got to step up and be the role model yourself and avoid groupthink and think for yourself. Be a team player for America and the human race. Manifest teamwork. Share the video and share the message.